Hello folks, Dick Fairburn here. A few weeks ago I did a video on carjackings and how to be prepared for carjackings, how to survive them. And if you're going to be inside of a car and have to use deadly force, then you have to understand what's going to happen when you shoot out through glass. For police officers, they sometimes have to shoot in as well. Sometimes they have to shoot bad guys who are driving at them in a vehicle. In one rare instance that I know of here in Illinois about 10 years ago, a trooper was pinned behind the trunk of his car and another vehicle behind him. The driver of that car was deliberately trying to kill the trooper. He had him pinned up against the back of the vehicle. In the video clip, you can hear the tires burning off of the minivan as he's trying to crush that trooper. An Illinois conservation officer, game warden we call them, was there, had happened by to see if the trooper needed assistance. He jumped up onto the hood of the police car, fired through the windshield of the suspect vehicle several times, killed the guy, and was able to get the trooper out, and he was not permanently injured. But the trooper was not able to defend himself because the two vehicles were essentially had him pinched in above his duty belt, so he could not get to his pistol. So shooting in or shooting out of automobile glass is something that people sometimes have to do. So a couple of weeks ago I set up a little situation with two racks to hold automobile windshields, and we get cracked windshields for free at the local auto glass repair centers. Had a setup to fire out as if you were behind the wheel of a vehicle, and then also to fire in at someone who could be driving a vehicle at you. And we used handguns ranging from, the measly little 22 long rifle up through 45 ACP. And then I fired in with some handguns as well as a 5.56. Obviously it's pretty difficult to fire a carbine out through the windshield of a car if you're sitting behind the wheel. You just really don't have room. And I'm not going to show you all the various ones that we fired and logged, but the overall finding is that the bullets will be shredded by going through the glass. And in the comments below this video, I'm going to point you to a ballistics high-speed YouTube channel where they have some really excellent footage of shooting through automobile glass. And you're able to see in that high speed that the bullets are just shredded. They fired 9mm full metal jackets. They fired 5.56 rifle and 7.62 rifle through both the automotive windshield glass, which is 2 layers of tempered glass with a very tough plastic layer in the middle, and then also through side window glass, which is primarily tempered glass that will crumble when it shatters. Some vehicles are now being made with the windshield type glass in the side windows as well, hoping to prevent people from being ejected during accidents. So that's going to make them tougher for both rescue, shooting through, and everything else. So the side windows just crumble away in little cubes. So one round will generally get you a big enough hole that the following bullets will not be damaged in any way. What you're going to see through this windshield, and we worked hard to try to put the follow-up rounds through that same hole to see if they were damaged even less than the original, but virtually no bullet is going to make it through the windshield of a car without being torn up pretty badly. So the idea is you're going to need several rounds. You're going to need to work a hole into that windshield and then put follow-up bullets. Sometimes they're going to be deflected up, sometimes down. What we found was the primary bulk of the bullet that remains will go pretty straight where you aimed it. It can be deflected. And interestingly, the most deflection we saw was with some Black Hills ammunition Honey Badger loads, which used the Lehigh Defense all copper projectiles. The only thing that I can think is that the front of those things have facets, and perhaps they planed off of going through the glass. They seem to be more intact. They didn't get torn apart as badly, but they did deflect rather sharply downward when we fired them out through the windshield of the car. but following shots would come right back up where you were aiming as the hole got bigger and bigger. One rifle projectile, I fired a 52 match hollow point load from 5.56 carbine. I believe it's a 223 load. And the first one remained fairly intact, at least a sizable chunk of the bullet got through and marked the target. The second one is a profile, and I basically hit the same hole, but of course that hole is kind of ragged, and what I suspect happened is the bullet, instead of getting damaged severely, it simply ticked aside and started to tumble, and we got a full profile image where it went through the target. Now that's still going to be a very dangerous wound. It's probably going to be a fatal wound, but it just shows how you are not going to just shoot through a piece of glass and get the exact kind of hit you need. So we'll show you this video, and I'm going to leave a comment in the comment section. I'm going to refer you to the other video where they do high-speed photography of shooting through glass, and I think adding what I will show you today and what you can see from the high-speed ballistics channel will make a lot of sense. This is something we have to be prepared for. If you're going to survive a carjacking, you need to know how to shoot out through the side window, the front window, and what's going to happen when you do. Hopefully this video will be interesting to you, and stick around for just a second and we'll get it started. Okay, this will be shooting out as if you've got someone coming at you to carjack. This is a 380 with full metal jacket ammo. Go ahead when you're ready. Okay. Okay. Make the pistol safe. Okay, your first shot was dead on the circle. So there was no deflection at all. Where you were aiming is exactly where you hit. The other two are kind of going through that shattered area of the windshield now. And so there's not a lot of prediction that we can do with that. It could go anywhere.
Yeah.
So if you have to fire in the event of something like this, the best thing to do is to fire a flurry. Be careful, use your sights, good trigger control, but fire several, because ultimately we're going to get a hole in the windshield. Let me see this. Hang on, stay there. Ultimately, we're going to get a hole in the windshield where several of those have gone through. The bigger the hole, the less disruption the bullets are going to put up with. Now let's look at the target. Pistol safe?
Pistol safe.
Okay. These are 380 full metal jackets, but you can see that is not a round hole. That's not a round hole from that first impact. It's just a fragment. These are pretty big, we can't tell from that. But that first one, if that was an intact full metal jacket, it should have a pretty much round shape. But virtually all of these bullets, including full metal jackets, get shredded when they go through a windshield. All right, this will be the 380 again, using that Honey Badger all copper bullet. Same aiming point. Okay, this one went very, very low. If you see, it is a pretty much round hole. I believe that Lehigh bullet stayed more intact, but it deflected a good 7 to 8 inches low. Okay, that's why you need to follow up with more shots. So we're going to have her fire a couple more shots at that same aiming point. Okay, 2 more rounds follow-ups with full metal jackets. Okay, once again, we got a kind of a unique piece of glass hit every time. The first of that 3-shot group was the Black Hills load down, deflected quite a ways down. The 2 full metal jackets then were through areas that had been kind of pulverized. And these are more rounded hits, so those bullets are getting through more intact. But they both went to the right. Okay, this will be shooting out. I'm getting a little bit different angle here, so I've got unbroken glass. Be a 9mm full metal jacket, 115 grain. Guy's kind of at the end of my hood. Little bit deflection to the right. Elevation was good. all acceptable hits, all within 2 or 3 inches. You can see that I got almost all 3 of my holes through the same hole. So that's going to cause less deflection, less damage to the bullets. There was the first hit. It looks fairly round. First hit looks fairly round. That is clearly fragmented. But that's all within hand breadth. So that's pretty close to the aiming point. And that would be the equivalent of somebody right on the end of my hood of my car right here. With a 100 grain honey badger. Okay, I got the same reaction as the 380 honey badger. It looks to be more of a fully intact hole going through that first shot, but it deflected low like my wife's 380 did. And then they worked their way up, pretty much going through the same hole. Each one was just slightly higher than the other. The red dot was pretty much the same place. Again, center mass, all good hits. This is at the hood of my car. If it's a lot more distant than that, I think that deflection problem is going to start to work its way out more and more. But these did appear to be more intact, more round hits with the 100 grain honey badger. Okay, in other videos I posted, I talked about how the 45 brings more metal to the fight, and that means it's more likely to get more metal through the windshield to do more damage on the other side. The high-speed ballistics video I'm going to refer you to, it shows how 9mm full metal jackets, 5.56, 7.62 are just shredded into chunks by the time they get through this windshield. So the gun shop commando said, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, the 9mm out penetrates a 45 every time. It's not a matter of penetration in windshield. I'm going to shoot a 22 here in a minute. You'll see that even a 22 will go through this. It's just the fact that when you start with more bullet metal, you're going to end up putting more bullet metal on target. Sorry folks, that's called physics. And all of your gun shop commando thinkings can't change that. This has got a little bit of an angle left and right to the glass too, but we'll see what the 45 does. Deflected up. Flurry more through the same hole. As I said, nothing makes it through the windshield intact. Here's a pattern of 4 rounds, 45, 230 full metal jacket, that's center hole. First round was up here, and you can see it is not a round hole. Second and third does appear to be mostly round because that glass has been fractured and gotten out of the way. Now we have 2 dead center hits here. One looks round, one is just a chunk. So that's probably not a full bullet that went through that hole. Nothing makes it through the windshield unscathed. 38 snub nose revolver. I'm going to get off to the side for clean glass again. These are jacketed, 110 grain jacketed hollow points from a Colt Agent. First one, careful, see for deflection. Hit right at the edge. I'm going to shoot low from the windshield. I'm going to shoot at the belt buckle of the target. This would still be well up above the dash. 38 special, 110 grain jacketed hollow point. First round, I couldn't tell at all. I'm not sure enough of it made through the windshield to keep from going into splatters. I purposely used that 38 special 110 hollow point. I was aiming here at the buckle. This is the second round I fired, which is essentially through the same hole in the glass. The first round, I don't think there's any impact at all. Okay, if anything, it's this one. But we also have just splatters. Actually, that might be it right there. Stand by, we may have a slug. That is the remains of the jacket of that 110 grain hollow point plus P from a 38 special. I was aiming here. The first round hit there. It did not even make it completely through the OSB board backer. It just barely went into the surface. People don't understand the damage that windshield glass can do to a projectile. Second one, essentially through the same hole. Second one's pretty much intact and not very far deflected from the first. But that first bullet was destroyed. Only the a piece of jacket made it to just barely stick into the face of the backing board. So that shows how much these bullets are damaged by a windshield. And I'll show you a video at the end, or link to it, to show you that even a .308 rifle bullet will be shredded as it goes through this windshield. Okay, from the 45 down to the pipsqueak. 22s can, for some people, be a viable self-defense option. If they have trouble working the slide, they have trouble with recoil because of age and arthritis, 22 is a last resort. These are solid bullets. I'll show you a close-up of them when we're done here. I'll fire one to see about deflection, and then a flurry. 22, solid point. Actually, I don't see a bullet impact at all. All I see is some fragments. So you got to give it a flurry. Okay, here's a 22. The first one had one tiny little fragment hit. Clearly no resemblance of an intact bullet made it through on that first shot. But here is a number of shots through that one pulverized area. That's an intact bullet hit, nice round hole. Most of the rest of these are pretty disfigured. So if you've got to shoot through a windshield with a 22, you better give them several. Here's just a fragment up here that barely tore through the paper. But the first round didn't get to the target at all, just bullet fragments. But after several later, we got, that's bullet fragments, that's a bullet, that's a bullet. So you're going to need to get a hole through the glass to do some damage with a 22. 22 solids are going to be your best chance for good penetration in a handgun for self-defense. Hollow points, not going to make it through the windshield. Okay, there's no sense in wasting more pistol ammo or more glass. We've proven the point that pistol bullets will get through. They may make a serious wound with one round, they may not. So a flurry is the best advice. I'm going to bring a 5.56 into this mix. I'm going to be off to the side, out of the way of the vehicle. I'm going to be at about 8 to 10 yards. The first two rounds I'm going to fire are 52 grain match hollow points. This is a varmint grade bullet. It's an accuracy type lightweight bullet. Most state bids for 5.56 or 223 ammo, I know in Illinois, the last I knew, the state bid was a 55 grain, either a soft point or a hollow point, depending on who gets the bid that cycle. Those are varmint grade bullets. They will almost never give the minimum recommended 12 inches of penetration in bare gelatin. But they don't do a bad job on bad guys, because generally they're not armored, there is not a barrier. This is a barrier, so I'm going to fire two. First one we'll fire, see what kind of damage we get from that lightweight hollow point bullet. I suspect it's just going to be a spray of fragments. And then I'll try to put a second one through the same hole and see if it does a better job. 5.56, 52 grain hollow points. With any AR, remember that you've got a 2.5 inch offset. So I'm aiming about the top of his hairline. Walking up, there is one pretty good projectile. I aimed about here, so I got a 2.5-inch drop anyway. That's pretty close to where I'm intending to hit, and it looks like a fairly solid slug. Let's put a second one through there. Same aiming point. Pretty much the same hole in the glass. And look what we have. It looks to me like that bullet, if it's intact, it's sideways. Probably intact, but tumbling 90 degrees. Still, that's going to take the fight right out of the guy. Let's move over to the other target, and I'll throw some 55 full metal jackets. A steeper angle now slightly. And I'm had that same hairline hold. 55 full metal. Okay, we have a major hit up above the drawn in hairline. It's certainly not an intact bullet, but it's a substantial chunk. 55 full metal. Follow-up shots. Okay, and that second shot got a pretty substantial hole here. So out of the 2 full metal jackets, we got 2 pretty good hits, and they're right about 2.5 inches low. So there's very little deflection. I'm coming in from that right side. It veered very little to the left. So full metal jacket's going to get through the glass. It's going to do some damage, but you're probably going to have to fire several to really make them count. One thing I want to show you, as you can see, I had a target covering below the dash. And look at all those fragments. This is well below. This is good foot or more below where I was aiming. But a lot of the glass spray and probably bullet fragments as well went down. The rule of thumb is that when you shoot in, the bottom edge of your bullet is going to contact the glass first, and that typically tends to bring it down, the angle down. In terms of the impact of the primary projectile parts, they're staying pretty true. But a lot of that spray, that glass and fragments, are going to go at a down angle. When we shot in over here, when you shot in through this windshield, the top of the bullet is going to make contact with the glass first, and that tends to bring the spray of fragments and glass up. When you're shooting out, the tip of the bullet is going to hit on the top edge first because of the angle of the glass. That's going to tend to pull the bullet fragments and the glass fragments up. So when you're shooting out, a lot of the spray is going to go up. The major portion of the bullet seems to go pretty straight. You're going to do all right. But shooting in, it hits the bottom first. Tends to pull that spray down, and you can see how low it was in that backwards target I have that's marking below the dash. Now, if you want to look at my racks that I made, this one is kind of a halfway between a Jeep Cherokee and a pickup truck height. So the lower edge of the glass here. And as you can see, I just made these frames out of 1x3s. They're not real heavy, they're not real substantial, but they'll more than hold that glass. It's sitting here to block the front. I took the angle of the glass and I cut the right length here so that the measurement holds this at just about the right angle for a pickup truck or a Jeep Cherokee. So sport utility. This one, again, Jeep Cherokee or so, I measured to have the steering wheel here at the right height above the seat that I had in my wife's Jeep. So this sits lower because the seat in a Jeep sits higher to the real world. So this is unusually low. I bring my targets down low to correspond. But this is a pretty accurate setup from what you're going to do shooting out. put some kind of steering wheel on there so they have to get in and around or above it. And again, this is very lightly built, kind of wobbles back and forth, but it's perfectly solid to hold those. And there again, it's blocked at the front. The uprights hold it at the angle that I measured off the vehicle. Doesn't cost much. They'll last for years. So for your police agency or civilian concealed carry course, if you want to shoot through glass, give people the experience of doing that, it doesn't take much. You'll get all the cracked windshields you want from your local repair center for free. When they're done, I just toss them in the dumpster. That's what they do with them. So it's a very low-cost way to train to get the experience of actually shooting through glass, and then you understand that it can be done if you must. Okay, we got them both here now. You ready? Bud got one. Ginger got one. Oh, she missed it. She usually gets them, doesn't she, Bud? Okay, girl, last one. You ready? You ready? Yeah! That's all there is till next time.